Welcome everyone, I'm your host Elias Arantopoulos. This time around you will learn how to create a drop cap inside Adobe Illustrator by dividing a monogram into parts, applying patterns, and anchor that inside a paragraph using Adobe InDesign. Up next. So inside Adobe Illustrator, I just have a type layer with a bold style applied to it to make the effect more dramatic, since drop caps tend to be small in sizes. So look out for fonts with bold or extra bold styles. So the plan here is to split, to divide this type of object into several parts and assign different textures and patterns to it. So for that, I will go up to the Type menu and I will use the Create Outlines. Now this text layer has become outlined and cannot be edited as text. At the same time, this creates a group of separate compound paths. We can see this inside the Layers panel. Here is the compound path. In this case, we just have one since we have one object. So I will go up to the Object menu and ungroup this. Great. So as I mentioned before, we're going to split this. We're going to divide this letter N into separate parts. So for that, we're going to get the help of let's go to the View menu, and we're going to get the help of the grid. That's one thing. The second thing is to go back to the View menu and snap the grid. And I'm doing this so I can snap this, and that will be easier for me to be able to snap the guides that I'm going to create soon after. So this is one thing, but I need to fix certain things in this letter N. Again, I'm using a specific font, so it's going to be a different situation depending the font you're using. So for that, I will click and use the Direct Selection tool, and I will marquee select these two anchor points here, and I'm going to align this to this grid line right here. So for that, I will use the down arrow key on my keyboard to do so. I will marquee select all of these anchor points here, and I will use again the down arrow key to align those anchor points to this grid line, and that's very okay with me. What else can I do? Let's make sure that these also align to the grid. So I'm going to use the up arrow key and then the down arrow key. I'll do the same one here. There we go. And also here, I'm just going to use the down arrow key. Great. What else can I do? Well, if I zoom in here, you can see we have two anchor points. I don't need one of them. So I will right click to get to the delete anchor point tool and click one to remove it. I'll do the same one here. I'm going to click once to remove that. And now we are ready to create some guides. Okay. So for that, we need to have the rulers. So go up to the View menu and access the rulers. There we go. And then I will click and drag to create the first horizontal guide here. So I'm just going to click and drag. This is going to snap. Because we have snapped the grid. Another one there. Another one here. And there. See that? Great. How about the rest? Well, for the rest, we need to go up to the View menu, and then we're going to toggle off snap to grid, because these anchor points are not snapped to any grid. I'm just going to zoom in here a lot, and this time I will create a vertical guide. So I'm going to click and drag with the selection tool, and this is going to snap. I will do the same one here. Click and drag to create another vertical guide right there. Another one here, and another one right there. Okay, so I need to move this. I can't because my guides are being locked, and they are locked by default. So you need to go up to the View menu and under Guides, Unlock Guides. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring this close, like so. Okay. So this is one thing. Now what I need to do is, as I mentioned before, we're going to split this into several parts. So with this selection tool, okay, I'm going to marquee select everything. You see everything gets selected. let me show you something that might happen to you. If you have your guides locked and you try to select this, only this compound path will be selected. So you want to be on the lookout for this. Just make sure that your guides are unlocked. Mark you select everything. Again, you're going to be double checking your work inside the layers panel. Everything has been selected now. And then I will go up to the window menu, use the Pathfinder, and inside here, I'm going to divide everything. So for that, I'm going to use the divide Boolean operation, which is under the Pathfinders. So click once, and now all of these have been divided. We can see this from the layers panel. Now here's the thing, we have some leftovers here, and that's because the parts that were not snapped to the grid, the ones with the guides we placed and not aligned to the grid lines, these ones are a pixel off. So what we're going to do is target those leftovers by shift-clicking inside the target column, and that's why I always look inside the layers panel and double-check my work. In this case, I will just delete those. And now all of them, the rest of them seems to be fine. As you can see here, let's go ahead and ungroup all of these, go up to the object menu and ungroup that. Here are all the paths here, the separate paths, this one, and so on. Now I want this one, and I'm using the selection tool here. I'm going to shift select those. I want this to be just one path. All right. So for that, I'm going to use inside the shape modes, I will use the unite Boolean operation. There we go. This is one path. I also want this to be another single path. Again, I'm going to use the unite Boolean operation. And I want this one, and I'm holding on the shift key as I do, to also be one path. So click once, and now we have exactly what we're looking for. All of these separate paths. Now we don't need to have the grid on, just hide the grids. There we go. We don't need this as well, or the rulers. There we go. Now we're ready to go to the next step and apply some patterns to these separate individual paths. Just don't forget to save your work. Controls to save, Commands to save. All right, so the next step is to apply patterns to these separate paths. So for that, I will go up to the window menu and I'm going to bring up the swatches panel. Now, what I usually like to see is the larger thumbnail view. In this case, I will click on the flat menu, and instead of a small thumbnail view, I will go for the large thumbnail view. I'm just going to click and drag this so I can see everything here. Great. Now, before I proceed and actually start applying some patterns, first I will marquee select everything and make sure you can see that inside the layers panel. Go up to the edit menu, copy all of these paths, back on the edit menu, and then paste in front. In this case, I'm going to group all of these paths. So I will go up to the object menu and group them. So here's the first group, which means I will click and drag and bring this at the bottom of the layer stack. This is the first group. Now we'll create another copy for this group. So the easiest thing to do is to click and drag this at the bottom of the layers panel, right on top of this plus icon, to create another duplicate. I will lock them so I don't accidentally move them and toggle off their visibility. Great. Now I can apply some patterns here. So for that, we need to access the swatch libraries menu. That is inside the swatches panel. At the very bottom here, if you hover over, it will give you the swatch libraries menu indication here. Click on that. As you can see here, we have a lot of different preset swatches and patterns to look for. In this case, we're going to go under the patterns, basic graphics, and then basic graphics lines. Click on that. In this case, I'm going to use one of these patterns here. And I believe I'm going to go for the 6 LPI 20. But before I do that, I need to first of all shift select, click on these two shapes here. I can see also the preview here and apply this pattern. Just make sure that the fill is right on top. So click on that and here's the pattern. Great. Now this pattern gets added to the swatches panel. Here it is. So what I'm going to do is double click inside the patterns options and then marquee select because I want to edit these and I am inside the pattern editing mode. So just make sure that the stroke is right on top here. Inside the libraries menu, I'm just going to use this stroke color. I'm not going to click done. First, I'm going to click to save a copy. I'm going to just use new pattern 1 here. Click OK. Now you get this message. The new pattern has been added to the swatches panel. Here it is. Click OK and click done. Great. That's one thing. Let's go ahead and target those again, those two. Now this time I'm going to the effect menu. Under distort and transform, we're going to transform this. We need to rotate these patterns. Now let me do a demo here. If I change the rotation angle here, and you can see since we have the preview on, everything gets rotated. In this case, we just want to rotate the pattern inside. So I'm just going to zero this out. And then what we need to do is inside the options, toggle off the transform object. So click on that, and I'm going to rotate this to minus 45 degrees. Hit the tab key to see the preview, and then click OK if you like what you see. Great. That's one thing. Now I'm going to target these ones here. So I'm going to shift select, and inside, again, I'm looking inside the layers panel here. And what I'm going to do, we're going to apply a different pattern here. All right, so for that, we're going to go back to the swatch libraries menu, patterns, basic graphics textures. And for that, the first one I'm going to use is, I believe, will be the ripple. Click on that. You see, I made a mistake because I had this stroke on top, which means I'm going to need to go to the edit menu, undo the apply swatch, make sure the fill color is on top, and then apply the ripple pattern, like so. See that? Again, we're going to double click inside the swatches panel since this has been added here. Double click to go inside the pattern editing mode, marquee select everything, make sure the stroke is up. I'm just going to change the color here to perhaps this color. There we go. Again, I'm going to save a copy. New pattern 2. New pattern has been added to the swatches panel. Here it is. Click OK. Click done. Great. What else can I do? Maybe just for the kicks, I can just shift select all of these, target these, back on the effect menu, distort and transform. In transform, I will uncheck the transform objects. Let's go for 45 degrees. Again, just for the kicks, and then click OK. Great. Now I'm going to focus on this one. Just make sure that the fill is on top. And we're going to go, I believe, for the mezzotint irregular. Click on that. Here it is. Again, we're going to double click to go inside the pattern editing mode. Marquee select all of these. And this time I'm just going to give a white color to the stroke. Save a copy. Pattern 3. Click OK. Click OK. Here's the pattern. And click done. We're not going to see that. And that's why we had those groups come in handy, which means let's go ahead and toggle off the visibility here. And I'm going to target those separately here. So for example, for this one, I believe this one, shift click. All right, to have all of these targeted. This is the other group, not this group. Don't get confused here. And I'm going to use for fill color this one. See that? Great. How about this guys here? Let's target this one. Shift click. And I'm going to use for the fill color this one. And we have a remaining of this one right here. Just going to use this fill color. Great. We've got that. Now we have the last group here. So I will toggle off the visibility and unlock it. Just going to select that, and I'm selecting only this group. So I'm going to use the down arrow key or the right arrow key or the up arrow key just to move around and see what works for me. This is going to be like a shadow kind of a thing. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, and as I do that and press the down arrow key or any other key, that will go by increments of 10 points. So this is what we need to do. You need to save this first, okay? So go ahead, Control S to save, Command S to save. That's one thing. Save that out. Because what we're going to do now is, before we add this to the library, we need to make sure that everything has been expanded. Expanding is particularly helpful if you are having difficulty printing transparent effects, patterns, gradients, strokes, blends, and so on. In this case, we do have patterns. So what I'm going to do is marquee select everything with the selection tool. Of course, make sure that you can see that inside the layers panel and nothing is locked. Then I will go to the object menu. And here we have two choices: the expand appearance and the expand. The expand is grayed out because right now what happens is the expand appears available only if the selection has multiple fills or strokes applied to it. And that's what happens here. That's why the expand appearance is only available, because we have multiple fills or strokes. Click on that, then object menu, and then expand. You see now the expand is available. Great. Now, what are we going to expand? Well, we don't have any strokes. We only have fills. So click OK. Now this is done. Go inside your libraries if you wish. Just click and drag this. I'm going to drag this inside here. I'm going to double click and I'll rename this to drop cap, like so. Here it is. So this is ready to be added inside Adobe InDesign. In this case, just make sure that you don't save that and you revert it from the file menu and click to revert. All right, great. One quick note here before we jump into Adobe Design is that this group, this very last group, is consisted of all these separate shapes. That might give us an artifact issue inside Adobe Design once we start resizing. So to be on the safe side, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use, again, go back to the Pathfinder, and I'm going to unite all of these objects here, all of these separate shapes into one. So I'm just going to click on the Unite Boolean operation, and here is one single path. Another thing I can do is to offset the drop shadow even more. You can always experiment with how far you want your drop shadow to be positioned at. Now I'm going to press the Shift key at the same time as I use the arrow keys and nudge it by increments of 10 points. And then inside the Libraries panel, I will right-click to remove the previous drop cap I created and saved. Marquee select all of these. Go to the Object menu, expand the appearance, back on the Object menu, and again expand all the fills. You see, I don't have any strokes, that's why you don't see any strokes here. So just click OK. Great. Then I'm just going to click and drag and put this again, add it to my libraries here. Here you go. Double click, rename this to drop cap, and just click away. All right. So now I'm going to jump inside Adobe Design. I have just a sample layout here. And inside the libraries, what we're going to do is we're going to attach this drop cap to this text paragraph. So let me go ahead and zoom in. And specifically, I'm going to replace the very first letter, which is the letter N on my end. So I'm just going to double click, select that, and press the delete key. Then I'm going to click and drag, and just place this anywhere on the canvas. There we go. As you can see, we get a pretty low display preview here. So right click, display performance, and then choose the high quality display like so. The next step is to resize this, but we need to resize this proportionally. So for that, I'm going to click inside the properties panel, and under the frame fitting, we're going to actually use the auto fit option, which will make content resize as frame resizes. Click on that and then use Alt Shift, Option Shift on your keyboard to size this down proportionally from the center. I'm just going to move it right here. All right. There we go. And the next step is, let me zoom in a bit, is to actually anchor this drop cap to the paragraph. So for that, what we're going to do is You see where is this little blue box here? When I hover over, we get this message. Shift drag to make inline object or Alt drag to open the dialog box. In this case, we're going to hold on the Shift key. Again, we're going to click on this blue box. And when I click and drag, and here is the anchor indication. Release. Here it is. The next step is you can hold on the Alt key or the Option key and then click on this icon here, this anchor icon. Click on that and we get the anchored object options. Go ahead and play around. In this case, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to cancel this out. All I'm going to do with the selection tool is just going to click and drag, and I'm holding down the Shift key as I do to move this into place. Now, the last step is to specify how the text will wrap around the drop cap. So, under the text wrap and inside the properties panel, right now we have no text wrap. So we're going to go for the second choice, wrap around bounding box. Click on that. There we go. Now we need to have a little space here. We can do this by playing around with these offsets. By default, probably this icon here is enabled. So if you keep that press, all the changes will be the same. In this case, I'm going to disable that, and I'm just going to change the right offset. So I'm just going to click once and click again, and here it is. Here's the appropriate space. I will double click on the zoom tool to look at the end result. There you go, and here is a custom drop cap idea for your own projects. Just practice with different patterns, monograms, drop shadows, and whatever else you think might be creative. Thank you everyone for spending time with me, listening to the inspired lectures and tutorials. Do not forget to subscribe, support the channel, and share the knowledge.